The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with activity as representatives from 100 different species gathered around the central holographic display. The emergency distress beacon pulsed in angry red, its signal growing weaker with each passing moment. High Counselor Mark stood quietly, watching the more aggressive species argue among themselves. The reptilian crushers thumped their armored chests, boasting about their battle prowess while simultaneously making excuses about why they couldn't respond. The crystalline warriors of light stood motionless, their faceted bodies reflecting the emergency lights as they declared the mission beneath their dignity. The signal comes from a mere research station, rumbled Thunderscale, the Crusher ambassador. There is no glory in saving scientists who were foolish enough to build their station in such a dangerous location. Mark rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. The human representative had spent enough time in the council to know how this would play out. The warrior races would continue to posture and boast, while the research station's crew faced death with each passing minute. The holographic display shifted, showing the station's location, trapped in the gravitational dance between a pulsar and a black hole. The station's warning systems had detected growing instability in the region. Their fate was sealed unless help arrived soon. "The humans will go," Mark announced, his voice calm but firm. The chamber fell silent before erupting in mocking laughter. The warriors of light vibrated in amusement, their crystalline bodies creating a chiming sound that echoed through the chamber. "Of course the cowards would volunteer," sneered Thunderscale. "They who wear protective suits to walk in merely acid rain. They who refuse glorious battle in favor of negotiations." He spat the last word like a curse. Mark activated his communicator, ignoring the taunts. "Captain Bill, is the Prudence ready?" "Yes, sir," came the steady reply. "We've been monitoring the situation. Engineering has already calculated several possible approach vectors, and medical has prepared for multiple species emergency care." Thunderscale's massive head swung toward Mark. "You dare to plan rescue operations before the council had even finished deliberating." "We dare to be prepared," Mark replied simply. "While you debated the glory of the mission, we prepared to save lives. That's what humans do." The warriors of light shifted uncomfortably, their crystalline bodies casting rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. "Your species lacks the courage to face death in battle," their leader chimed. "You plan and prepare and calculate, always seeking the safest path." "Yes," Mark agreed. "We do. And that's why we're still alive to help others." The chamber erupted in angry muttering, but Mark continued his communication with the Prudence. "Captain, you have full authorization. Proceed with rescue operations." "Acknowledged," Captain Bill responded. "We've already loaded specialized shielding for pulsar radiation and gravitational distortion. Extra medical supplies for all known species at the research station are on board. We'll have them out before the station's orbit deteriorates." The warrior races watched in confusion as human rescue ships departed without ceremony or boasting. There were no war cries, no declarations of glory to come, just the steady hum of well-maintained engines and the quiet confidence of a crew that had trained for exactly this type of mission. As the rescue ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Thunderscale approached Mark. "Your people are strange," he growled. "You turn away from glorious battle, yet you fly toward certain death between a pulsar and a black hole." Mark smiled slightly. "The difference, Thunderscale, is that we don't plan to die. We plan to succeed." The warriors of light chimed in agreement. Perhaps, their leader admitted reluctantly, there is something to be said for the human way. As the council chamber slowly emptied, Mark stayed behind, watching the rescue ship's progress on the holographic display. In the end, it wasn't the warrior races with their battle prowess who answered the call. It was the cowardly humans, with their careful planning, their backup systems, and their unwillingness to sacrifice lives needlessly. Sometimes, Mark reflected, the greatest courage wasn't in rushing headlong into danger, but in taking the time to find the safest way to help others. The humans knew this, even if the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand. The rescue mission had begun. Now it was up to Captain Bill and his crew to prove once again that human caution was far from cowardice. It was wisdom born from thousands of years of learning from their mistakes. Aboard the rescue vessel Prudence, Captain Bill watched his crew prepare with practiced efficiency. The ship's corridors hummed with activity, but there was no chaos, no rushed shouting. Every crew member moved with purpose, following procedures they had drilled countless times before. Engineering report. Bill called out, his eyes scanning the multiple holographic displays surrounding his command chair. Chief Engineer Tom looked up from his station, his hand still moving across the control panels. All systems at peak efficiency, Captain. We've installed the experimental gravitational stabilizers and triple-checked the radiation shielding. Backup systems are online and tested. The captain nodded, making a note in his log. Other species might mock the human tendency to install backup systems for their backup systems, but experience had taught them the value of redundancy. Medical, what's your status? Bill turned to the ship's chief medical officer. Dr. Ann straightened from where she'd been organizing emergency supplies. We're prepared for every known species stationed at the research facility. Extra trauma kits, radiation treatment modules, and emergency stasis pods are all ready. We've even brought specialized equipment for the crystalline beings. The warrior races would have sent warships, armed to the teeth, but lacking medical facilities. The humans had learned long ago that saving lives required more than weapons and bravery. In the ship's massive cargo bay, robots and crew members worked together, securing equipment that might be needed. Cutting tools capable of slicing through any known material, portable force field generators, and emergency pressure suits in all sizes filled the organized racks. Navigation. Bill called out, "Show me our approach options." The main screen lit up with multiple curved lines, each representing a possible path to the research station. Red zones marked areas of intense radiation or gravitational distortion. Yellow highlighted regions where the pulsar's energy might interfere with their shields. We've calculated 17 possible approaches, Navigation Officer Pete reported. The safest route will take an extra 30 minutes but keeps us outside the worst danger zones. The fastest route is here. He pointed to a line that cut dangerously close to the pulsar. But the risks are significantly higher. Bill studied the paths carefully. Other species would have chosen the direct route, seeing any deviation as cowardice. But humans had learned through centuries of space exploration that the shortest path wasn't always the wisest choice. We'll take the safer route, Bill decided. Those 30 minutes spent in transit are better than being torn apart by gravitational forces. The crew continued their preparations as the Prudence moved closer to its target. In the weapons room, security officers checked their non-lethal equipment, stun weapons, riot shields, and restraint fields. Unlike the warrior races, they didn't assume every mission would end in combat, but they remained prepared for any possibility. Captain, Communications Officer Jane called out, "We're receiving updated data from the research station. Their situation is deteriorating faster than initially predicted." Bill leaned forward in his chair. "Show me." The screen filled with numbers and graphs, telling a story of increasing danger. The station's orbit was becoming unstable as the gravitational forces around it shifted. Their careful approach might need to be adjusted. Engineering. Can our shields handle a slightly faster route? Bill asked. Tom's fingers flew across his console as he ran calculations. Yes, Captain, but only if we divert power from non-essential systems. I've already prepared a power management protocol for exactly this scenario. Other species might have seen such preparation as paranoid. Humans called it being thorough. Execute the protocol, Bill ordered. Navigation. Plot us a course between routes 3 and 4. Let's find the sweet spot between speed and safety. As the Prudence adjusted its course, Bill looked around at his crew. Not a single warrior among them, just scientists, engineers, doctors, and technicians. No battle cries or glory-seeking, just professional competence and careful preparation. The warrior races might never understand that true courage wasn't about rushing into danger, but about facing it with wisdom and preparation. As the Prudence moved steadily toward its dangerous destination, Bill knew that their cowardly approach would prove its worth once again. The rescue mission was proceeding exactly as planned. And in space, when lives were on the line, that was exactly how humans preferred it. The Prudence emerged from faster-than-light travel at a safe distance from the research station. The view that greeted them was both beautiful and terrifying. The pulsar's brilliant beam swept through space like a cosmic lighthouse, while the black hole's presence was marked by a dark distortion of starlight around its edges. Captain Bill stood from his chair, taking in the full view on the main screen. "Begin full sensor sweep. I want to know everything about this situation before we move closer." The research station hung precariously between these two cosmic giants, its once pristine structure now showing signs of stress. Metal plates buckled under the gravitational forces, and periodic flashes of light indicated failing shield generators. "Sensor data coming in now, Captain," Science Officer Robert announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The station's orbital decay is worse than we predicted. They've lost 3 of their 4 main stabilizers." While warrior races might have rushed in immediately, the Prudence held its position. The crew knew that understanding the situation fully could mean the difference between a successful rescue and a catastrophic failure. "Launch the probe drones," Bill ordered. "Let's get a closer look without risking the ship." A dozen small, unmanned vehicles shot out from the Prudence's launch base. Each was equipped with advanced sensors and protected by experimental shielding. The drones spread out, gathering data about radiation levels, gravitational stresses, and structural integrity of the station. "First drone readings coming in," Robert reported. "The radiation from the pulsar is creating interference in normal communication channels. Switching to quantum entanglement communicators." The warrior races had laughed when humans insisted on installing multiple communication systems. Now that redundancy was proving its worth. "Captain." Communications Officer Jane's voice carried a note of urgency. "We're receiving a transmission from the station. Audio only." "Play it," Bill commanded. A strained voice filled the bridge. "To any rescue vessels. We have 28 survivors aboard. Life support failing. Main reactor critical. Please, we don't have much time." The crew exchanged glances. 28 lives hanging in the balance, and they were the only ones who had come to help. "Engineering, what's the status of those gravitational stabilizers we brought?" Bill asked. "Ready for deployment, Captain," Tom replied. "But we'll need to get much closer to install them." The drone data continued streaming in, painting a complex picture of the challenges they faced. The space between the pulsar and black hole was a maze of gravitational eddies and radiation storms. One wrong move could tear their ship apart. "Navigation. Plot us a course through the safest zones," Bill ordered. "Use the drone data to map the gravitational currents." Pete's fingers moved across his console as he worked with the ship's AI to calculate a safe approach. "Course plotted, Captain. It's not straight, but it should keep us intact." The Prudence began to move, following a curved path that looked like a drunk man's walk to the untrained eye. But each twist and turn was precisely calculated to avoid the worst of the spatial distortions. "Medical, prepare for immediate evacuation procedures," Bill commanded. "We don't know what condition the survivors will be in." Dr. Ann nodded, already coordinating with her team. "Triage stations are set up in all medical bays. Stasis pods are ready if needed." As they drew closer, the true scale of the station's damage became apparent. Entire sections were warped by gravitational stress, and emergency force fields flickered weakly where hull breaches had occurred. "Captain," Robert called out, his voice tense. "The station's reactor is showing signs of imminent failure. We have maybe 2 hours before critical mass." Bill studied the data scrolling across his screens. A warrior race would have seen this as a moment for heroics, for a glorious rush into danger. But the human crew saw it differently, as a problem to be solved methodically, carefully, with every possible angle considered. "Begin final approach sequence," Bill ordered. "All hands to rescue stations. We're going to do this right, and we're going to do it once." The Prudence moved forward, carrying its cargo of hope toward the damaged station. They had no battle cry, no declarations of glory. They had something better: preparation, technology, and the determination to save every life they could. The real test was about to begin. The Prudence's docking procedure was unlike anything the warrior races would have attempted. Instead of forcing a direct connection, the ship deployed a series of magnetic tethers and extendable docking tubes, allowing them to maintain a safer distance from the failing station. "Primary tether secured," Tom reported from engineering. "Starting gravitational compensation sequence." The ship's new stabilizers hummed to life, fighting against the chaotic forces threatening to tear both vessels apart. Warning lights flashed across every console as the ship's computers calculated and adjusted to each new gravitational wave. "Station's main computer is partially responsive," Jane announced from her communication station. "I'm downloading their internal schematics and life support data now." Captain Bill studied the incoming information with practiced care. 28 survivors spread across 3 different levels, each section with its own failing life support system. The challenge wasn't just reaching them, it was reaching them all in time. "Deploy the rescue teams," Bill ordered. 3 teams, 3 levels. Remember your training. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. The rescue crews moved out in their heavily shielded environmental suits, each team led by an experienced officer. Unlike the warrior race's armor, these suits weren't built for combat. They were walking life support systems, designed to protect their wearers from every known space hazard. Team 1, moving to level Alpha, reported Officer Mike through the quantum comm. "Structural integrity of 40% and falling. We've got 8 survivors showing on our scanners." The rescue teams moved methodically through the station's corridors, using portable force field generators to stabilize failing sections as they went. Every step was calculated, every move planned. "Team 2 here," came Officer Lisa's voice. "We've reached the first group of survivors. 3 crystalline beings and 2 gaseous entities. Their containment chambers are failing." Dr. Ann's voice came through clear and professional. "Remember the protocols we developed. The stasis pods are specially modified for their physiologies. Don't rush the transfer process." The warrior races would have scoffed at such careful procedures, but the humans knew that hasty heroics often led to needless casualties. Each survivor was carefully moved according to their specific biological needs. "Captain," Robert called out from his science station, "the pulsar's radiation is increasing. Next burst will hit in 18 minutes. Bill nodded, checking the time against their planned schedule. "All teams, be advised. Radiation spike incoming. Mark your positions and prepare for temporary shelter protocol." The rescue teams acknowledge, already moving to secure themselves and their survivors in shielded areas they had identified during their planning phase. Nothing was left to chance. "Team 3 reporting." Officer Dan's voice crackled through. "We've found the station's science team. They're trapped behind a warped bulkhead." "Deploy the plasma cutter," Bill ordered. "Engineering, monitor the structural integrity. We can't risk a cascade failure." The rescue team worked with practiced precision, cutting through the damaged metal while portable force fields contained the atmosphere. Inside, they found 6 scientists huddled in their emergency suits, clutching their research data. "Main reactor status critical," Tom reported from engineering. 45 minutes until containment failure. The humans had planned for this too. While the rescue teams worked, engineers were already setting up portable quantum field generators around the reactor. They couldn't stop its collapse, but they could control it. 17 survivors secured, Jane updated. Teams 1 and 2 converging on final group. The station groaned around them, metal shrieking as gravitational forces pulled at its structure. But the human rescuers didn't panic. Each challenge was met with technology and technique developed through centuries of learning from past disasters. "Captain," Robert interrupted, "the black hole's accretion disk is becoming unstable. Our safe window is shrinking." Bill checked the countdown timers on his display. Everything was still within planned parameters, but the margins were getting thinner. "All teams, maintain protocol but prepare for accelerated evacuation," he ordered. "We're not losing anyone today." The rescue continued, methodical yet urgent. Each survivor brought aboard was a testament to human preparation and planning. The warrior races might call it cowardice, but as the death toll remained at zero, the humans knew better. They were proving that courage didn't always roar. Sometimes it was the quiet voice of careful planning saying, "Let's try this a smarter way." The pulsar's lethal beam swept through space, heading straight for the research station and the Prudence. Unlike the sudden battle cries of warrior races, the human response was calm and coordinated. "Radiation wave incoming," Robert announced from his science station. "Impact in 3 minutes." Captain Bill activated the ship-wide communication system. "All rescue teams, execute Radiation Protocol Delta. Secure your survivors and activate your portable shields." Throughout the station, the rescue teams responded with practiced efficiency. Portable radiation shelters sprang up around groups of survivors, their multi-layered shielding designed specifically for pulsar radiation. 23 survivors now secured aboard the Prudence, Dr. And reported from medical. 5 more to transport, all in critical condition. The station's structure groaned under the increasing gravitational stress. Warning alarms blared through the corridors as more systems began to fail. "Team 2, report status," Bill commanded. Officer Lisa's voice came through clearly despite the interference. "3 survivors with us in Section C7. Their life support suits are failing. Request emergency transport authorization." "Granted," Bill responded immediately. "Engineering. Divert power to emergency transporters." The humans' transporters weren't the crude matter-energy conversion devices of earlier centuries. These machines created stable micro-wormholes, allowing for safer transport even in extreme conditions. "Pulsar radiation impact in 60 seconds, Robert warned. The rescue teams worked with increasing speed, but never lost their methodical precision. Each survivor was properly secured and monitored during transport. The humans' cowardly insistence on safety protocols was saving lives that brute force could never have reached. "Captain." Jane's voice cut through the controlled chaos. "New reading from the station's core. The reactor containment is destabilizing faster than predicted." Bill's fingers flew across his command console, bringing up the relevant data. "Engineering, status of the quantum field generators. Operating at maximum capacity," Tom replied. "But the reactor's deterioration is accelerating. We have maybe 15 minutes before total containment failure." The pulsar's radiation wave hit. The Prudence's shields flared brilliant blue, layers of energy and exotic matter absorbing the deadly radiation. Inside the station, the rescue team's portable shelters held firm. "Radiation wave passing," Robert reported. "Shield efficiency at 92%. All survival chambers maintaining integrity." "Team 1, what's your status?" Bill asked. Officer Mike's response was steady. 2 survivors secured in portable stasis. Moving to final location now. Structure becoming highly unstable. The station's internal gravity began to fluctuate wildly as more systems failed, but the rescue teams were prepared, their magnetic boots and stability tethers keeping them anchored. "Medical bay reports all transported survivors stable," Dr. N announced. "Preparing for final group." Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the station. Metal screamed as gravitational forces twisted the structure. "Hull breach in Section D4, Robert shouted. "Team 1's path is blocked." This was the kind of moment where warrior races would attempt heroic charges through danger. The humans took a different approach. "Deploy the emergency bypass tubes," Bill ordered calmly. Flexible, reinforced corridors shot out from the Prudence's airlocks, their internal force fields maintaining atmosphere and stability. The tubes snaked through space, guided by precision computers, creating new safe paths around the damaged sections. Bypass tubes deployed and pressurized, Tom confirmed. Team 1, you have a new route to the Prudence. The final phase of the evacuation began. One by one, the last survivors were carefully moved through the bypass tubes. Each transfer was monitored by multiple systems, ensuring no one was exposed to the increasing radiation or gravitational stress. Final survivors secured, Jane announced. All rescue teams returning to ship. The station's death throes were becoming more violent. The reactor's containment field was barely holding, and the structure was beginning to break apart. All teams aboard, Officer Mike reported. Airlock sealed. Bill nodded, his expression focused. Retract all systems. Prepare for immediate departure. The Prudence's systems responded instantly. Docking tubes withdrew, tethers detached, and bypass corridors retracted. Every piece of equipment was recovered. Another cowardly human trait that had saved countless lives over the years. As the ship began its careful withdrawal from the dying station, the crew's attention turned to their rescued passengers. 28 lives saved, not by dramatic heroics, but by preparation, technology, and the careful application of human ingenuity. The real challenge, however, was just beginning. They still had to escape the deadly dance between pulsar and black hole. The Prudence shuddered as another gravitational wave struck its shields. Behind them, the research station's reactor finally lost containment, its core beginning to collapse in on itself. Reactor going critical, Tom reported from engineering. Gravitational shockwave incoming in 40 seconds. Captain Bill's mind raced through the options. The warrior races would have pushed their engines to maximum and tried to outrun the explosion. But the humans had prepared for this too. Execute Protocol Omega, Bill ordered. Engineering, prepare to implement the gravitational anchor. The crew moved with swift precision. From the Prudence's rear section, a specially designed device emerged, the result of years of human research into gravitational physics. Gravitational anchor ready, Tom confirmed. But Captain, we've never tested it under these exact conditions. Sometimes you have to work with what you have, Bill replied. Deploy on my mark. The station's reactor explosion began, a brilliant flash of light that would soon become a devastating wave of energy and gravitational distortion. The black hole's pull was intensifying, making their situation even more precarious. All hands, brace for gravitational manipulation, Bill announced shipwide. Engineering, deploy anchor now. The device activated, creating a controlled gravitational field that interacted with both the black hole and the pulsar. Instead of fighting against these cosmic forces, the humans were using them. Anchor field stable, Tom reported. Beginning gravitational counterweight procedure. The Prudence's computers calculated the perfect balance point between the various gravitational forces. The ship's position shifted slightly as the anchor field adjusted. Captain, Robert called out. The station's explosion. It's being contained by our anchor field. Bill nodded. This was exactly what they had hoped for. The anchor wasn't just saving them. It was preventing the explosion from reaching dangerous levels. Redirect power to the field stabilizers, he ordered. Use the explosion's energy to boost our escape vector. The ship's systems hummed as they executed the complex maneuver. Where warrior races would have seen only the need to flee, the humans saw an opportunity to turn danger to their advantage. Energy conversion at optimal levels, Tom reported, ready for controlled release. The explosion's energy flowed through their anchor field, carefully channeled by human technology. The Prudence began to move, riding the gravitational currents like a surfer on a wave. Plot our exit vector, Bill commanded. Use the pulsar's next burst to give us additional momentum. Navigation Officer Pete's fingers flew across his console. Course plotted, using the gravitational lens effect to multiply our speed. The ship moved through space in a complex dance, each motion precisely calculated to take advantage of the natural forces around them. The warrior races would have called it running away. The humans called it applied physics. Structural integrity holding at 89%, James reported. All survivors still stable in medical. Another gravitational wave struck, but this time the Prudence rode it out smoothly, the anchor field adapting to each new challenge. Beginning final escape sequence, Bill announced. Engineering, prepare to release the anchor field on my mark. The ship's computers counted down as they approached the optimal release point. Everything had to be timed perfectly. Pulsar burst in 3, 2, 1. Robert called out. Release anchor field now, Bill ordered. The Prudence shot forward as the gravitational anchor released its stored energy. The pulsar's burst caught them at exactly the right moment, adding to their velocity while their shields deflected its deadly radiation. Behind them, the station's reactor explosion collapsed in on itself, drawn into the black hole's embrace. The anchor field had prevented it from becoming a disaster that could have affected nearby systems. All systems nominal, Tom reported, a hint of pride in his voice. We're clear of the danger zone. The bridge crew allowed themselves a moment of quiet satisfaction. They had saved 28 lives and prevented a major catastrophe, not through brave charges or glorious battle, but through preparation, science, and the uniquely human talent for turning problems into solutions. Set course for the nearest medical station, Bill ordered, and send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the mission was successful. The Prudence moved smoothly through space, carrying its precious cargo of survivors. They had faced one of the most dangerous situations in known space, and they had overcome it not with warrior courage, but with human ingenuity. As they later learned, it would change how the galaxy viewed humans forever. The Galactic Council chamber was packed to capacity. Representatives from every major species had gathered to hear the official report on the research station rescue mission. Captain Bill stood calmly at the podium, his crew lined up behind him. High Counselor Mark watched with quiet satisfaction as Thunderscale, the Crusher ambassador, shifted uncomfortably in his massive seat. The Warriors of Light stood perfectly still, their crystalline forms reflecting the chamber's lights. The rescue mission was successful. Bill began simply. All 28 researchers were saved, and the station's reactor collapse was contained without damage to surrounding space. The chamber erupted in murmurs. A crystalline scientist who had been among the rescued stepped forward. I must speak, the scientist chimed. What the humans did, it was not cowardice. We watched them work. Every action was planned, every risk calculated. They turned the very forces threatening to destroy us into tools for our rescue. Thunderscale rose to his full height, but there was no battle. No glorious combat against the forces of nature. No, Bill agreed. Instead, we brought everyone home alive. Dr. Ann stepped forward, displaying holographic medical data. Every survivor is expected to make a full recovery. Even the gaseous beings, whose containment chambers were critically damaged, were saved through careful transfer procedures. The chamber's attention turned to Engineer Tom as he explained the gravitational anchor technology. The warrior races listened with growing understanding as he described how the humans had used physics and engineering to accomplish what brute force could never have achieved. You turned a reactor explosion into propulsion, one of the Crusher scientists rumbled, clearly impressed. And your anchor field technology. It's brilliant. High Counselor Mark stepped up to the podium. The Council has reviewed the mission logs. What we once mistook for cowardice, we now recognize as wisdom. The humans' approach to danger has proven itself superior in situations where traditional warrior methods would have failed. The Warriors of Light moved forward as one. We request, they chimed, to learn from the humans. Their methods of preparation and their technologies could benefit all species. Thunderscale nodded slowly. Even the Crushers must admit, there is courage in careful planning. Perhaps we have been wrong about humans. Captain Bill looked at his crew, then back at the assembled council. We don't seek glory or battle honors. We seek solutions. Every life saved is a victory. Every disaster prevented is a triumph. That's the human way. The council chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Species that had once mocked humans for their cautious nature were now seeing it in a new light. Therefore, High Counselor Mark announced, the Council proposes a new initiative. The human approach to crisis response will be taught to all species. Their methods of preparation, their technologies, and their problem-solving strategies will be shared throughout the galaxy. The chamber erupted in approval. Even the warrior races joined in, having finally understood that there was more than one kind of courage. Captain Bill and his crew stood proudly as representatives from various species approached them, asking questions about their methods and technologies. The humans answered patiently, happy to share their knowledge. You see, Mark said to Thunderscale, sometimes the bravest thing isn't charging into danger. Sometimes it's taking the time to find a better way. The massive Crusher nodded thoughtfully. My people have lost many warriors to situations that could perhaps have been handled differently. We would be honored to learn the human way. As the council session concluded, Captain Bill and his crew prepared to return to their ship. They had more missions ahead, more lives to save, more problems to solve. But now they would do it with the respect and understanding of the galaxy. The cowardly humans had proven that courage comes in many forms. Sometimes it roars in battle, but sometimes it whispers in careful planning, in redundant safety systems, in the quiet competence of a well-trained crew. And as the Prudence departed for its next mission, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. True courage isn't about facing danger recklessly. It's about facing it wisely, with all the tools and knowledge at your disposal. The humans had changed the galaxy's understanding of bravery forever, not through force of arms, but through force of wisdom, and that perhaps was their greatest victory of all.